Hey there, kids. Do you like anime? What about strategic warfare? Maybe a cute cel-shaded doggo is more your thing. If you said yes to any of those, well then Valkyria Chronicles 4 may be for you. Okay, let's just get into it. Valkyria Chronicles 4 takes place in the same war as the first game. This time around, we're following Claude Wallace and Squad E as they fight behind enemy lines in an offensive strike to capture the evil Empire's capital. I'm not going to go too far in the plot this time, but imagine World War II tech, except instead of planes, there are superpowered anime girls. Oh shit. Before this, I only really played the first game because the second and third game released on the PSP. Remember that thing? It was the much worse, but more commercially successful Sony portable gaming system. The most notable thing about Valkyria Chronicles 4 is how the story is significantly better than the first one. It's still not quite great, but the improvements are leaps and bounds better than the tone-deaf, ham-fisted mess of VC1. I want it on the record that most of your characters are no longer like this. After the very low bar set by the first game's story, the cast is obviously better here. Claude is the leader who puts every weatherman to shame, Riley is the science girl / love interest, Raz is the hothead who speaks to me on a very personal level.
Oh yeah! It's bacon time!
And then there's Kai, the serious sharpshooter and new girl with best buns. She might have a bread addiction, on top of a great... They're all childhood friends, so the relationships are already established, which allows their chemistry to shine better throughout the game and feels way more authentic. Is it a cop-out for writing naturally occurring relationships? You bet! But I guess you gotta write to your strengths somehow. The side characters are equally enjoyable too. Roll call! Basically a psycho from Borderlands, but shy around women. He even says milady.
Perhaps it would be wise to exercise caution, milady.
Guy who triggers every death flag imaginable, and they even point it out. Let's see, we got a crazy doctor and nearly every waifu you can think of. Ooh, this guy's straight from the PS2 era. And what the fuck? They even have Captain Morgan? How'd they get him? Even the main villains are interesting and relatable to an extent. Well, except this asshole. The reason being is it's helped by the story offering a little more nuance between the good and evil nature of war. Instead of having the clear-cut, typical good guys and bad guys, the final act of the story splashes a little bit of gray on both sides. I was even rooting for a few villains in the game who were just dealt a bad hand. Thankfully, the main theme and no-shit stance of racism and war are bad is no more, and Galaxy Brain VC4 mostly covers how the pressure of war twists people and how unchecked scientific advancements can be more harmful than good. The execution is still a little bit clumsy and the delivery still ham-fisted, but it's so much better than the first game. I kid you not, my expectations were very low coming in. Okay, enough of the backhanded compliments, time for the really bad parts of the story. The pacing is fucking awful. The beginning of the game is solid enough. The middle is so goddamn boring, I came really close to not finishing Valkyria Chronicles 4. But I stuck with it, and I'm so thankful I did, because the final third of the game is really strong, and it's a travesty some people might not get to it out of boredom. The middle is seriously a slog to get through, mostly because the story is stretched so thin like a piece of chewing gum. Substance on both ends, but really fucking sparse the closer you get to the middle. It feels like characters repeat the same lines over and over again, just worded slightly different, but instead of an 8-minute review, it's a 30-hour game. A major problem with VC4's pacing are these dialogue boxes. The game maybe has like 10-ish hours of cutscenes total, and 98% of them are this. Yep, that's it. There's only so much you can express in a few tiny isolated boxes scattered across the screen, which really ends up holding back the game's narrative. And despite all the bloated dialogue, Valkyria Chronicles 4 still has some trouble making character growth feel organic. For example, the tank driver Miles goes from upbeat to a coward at the drop of a hat. In the same ballpark, one of the romances feels a little bit rushed too, and there's also a Deus Ex Machina near the end that feels a little shallow, but now I'm nitpicking. The gameplay is still good old Valkyria Chronicles, with a few tweaks and additions here and there. That makes this title the best turn-based strategy game I've ever played. You have a little under 10 moves per turn, you can move units individually in a 3D world that opens up some really unique strategic opportunities, and you can even move the same unit multiple times during the same turn at the cost of less movement. Valkyria Chronicles offers you a lot of possibilities, and more freedom in general than most turn-based strategy RPGs. The success of the combat is a testament to the excellent level design, because each mission lives and dies whether it's good or not. Map layout, different terrain, and weather effects are all the different toys at your disposal that give each level variety and keep the strategy fresh. Some of my favorite aspects are manually aiming at enemy weak spots with the circle around the reticle showing you how hard you can get RNG'd. And you can get RNG'd pretty damn hard sometimes.
You gotta be kidding me.
At least you won't get 95% bullshitted like an XCOM. Units will defend positions by firing at enemies as they get close, which adds a nice layer to defense and makes steamrolling the computer like France in the real World War II a little more challenging. I just wish you were forced to defend a little more often, because for the most part you're gonna be on offense. Valkyria Chronicles 4 also had some much needed balance that the first game was lacking, specifically stacking orders and scout rushing bases. There are a lot more Gatling turrets than what I remember from the first game, so you have to sort of work together in pairs or groups of units to progress, instead of sending your immortal scout/baker to take out an enemy base single-handedly. Tanks are also not dead weight anymore because they only tank one action instead of two. The new Grenadier class is also a welcome addition to the roster and a giant pain in the ass to deal with, as they hit nearby soldiers with artillery fire and give them more concussions than an NFL football team. Finally, you can have leaders or the APC move multiple units at once, which makes moving some of the slower classes with less stamina a godsend. Some of these changes might not be brand new because I skipped 2 games, but regardless, they're very welcome. You can also unlock squad stories if you use certain units enough, which allows you to get to know them more as characters as well as improve some of their negative attributes. This means you actually have an incentive to use different characters, so thumbs up to that. Sure, you'll blow it if one of your characters dies, but considering how you get 3 turns to save them, you have to be either really unlucky or downright evil. Seriously, how could you just let them die like that? With that said, I do think Valkyria Chronicles' format could use a little bit more tweaking. For one, the missions take a fucking eternity, and most of the time spent is moving your units. The AI is also not the best, so I think it would at least be more interesting to rotate or switch turns more frequently to at least keep things more dynamic. But if you're looking for a great turn-based strategy game with just the right amount of cheese, then look no further. If you're not very patient, the middle portion of the game will really feel like a drag. Sure, you'll be rewarded for it if you stick with it till the end, but it's still quite the hurdle to get over. Valkyria Chronicles 4 gets a B-. Thank you guys so much for sticking around till the end. I have a review, a much older review of the first game, so if you don't mind bad fucking audio quality, then you can hear me tear apart that game over on that video. But before you do that, I guess feel free to tell me your thoughts on the game or on my review itself. Whatever you have to say, I always read the comments. But anyway, yeah, I'm back from my hiatus, so I'll have more videos to come. Later.